Tony Kanaan makes his 2021 plans official, standing along with Jimmie Johnson, and Formula E is going to race under the lights in Saudi Arabia. A lot of people are talking about the race and a little bit about Saudi Arabia. And Chase Elliott preparing for the Chili Bowl. All that and more right here on Grid tonight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Joe Samriego. With me, Kobe Lambis from the Podium Finish. We have a diverse lineup of racing news from around the world to report and discuss, including Formula E's new night race, Chase Elliott's Chili Bowl planning, a lot more, and we'll start with some delays from IndyCar, Jimmie Johnson's newest partner.
Yeah, and on Monday, we got the confirmation that Jimmie Johnson won't be racing on any ovals at all next year in the NTT IndyCar Series. While he said he only planned to do the road and street courses, some thought that Johnson might be intrigued by the Indianapolis 500 and all of the prestige surrounding that event, plus all of the safety innovations with the aero screen. However, Jimmie's sticking to the original plan of only doing the road and street courses, and he's going to be sharing the number 48 Honda with fan favorite Tony Kanaan. Yeah, Kanaan's going to be running in all four oval races, the Texas doubleheader, Indy 500, of course, and Gateway. And he's going to be sponsored by NTT Data and Bryant. And Tony Kanaan's last win came at Fontana in 2014, and TK has always been a threat to win at the ovals, and he's the 2013 Indianapolis 500 champion. Joe, here's my question for you. Is Tony Kanaan the perfect fill-in for Jimmie Johnson on the ovals?
I do see him being the perfect fill-in in the ovals for Jimmie Johnson. His record in the ovals, he is always very competitive. Of course, the Indianapolis 500 wins at Texas, Fontana, his last win there. He has really made it to where the ovals, he's comfortable racing there. We know that is always a big discussion when it comes to IndyCar racing is you have to be good at the road courses, but those oval tracks, there's something else. And of course, we see some other drivers that just run oval only or run the road courses, but not the ovals. So for me, and I think a lot of people would agree, Jimmie Johnson on the road courses, then you got Tony Kanaan in the ovals. That 48 car is going to be very competitive next year.
Yeah, definitely. That 48 car is going to be very competitive, and I do think that Tony Kanaan is the perfect fill-in for Jimmie Johnson on the oval tracks. Tony Kanaan didn't really get the proper send-off that he deserved because of the pandemic. You know, didn't have the fans out there to see him in TK's final lap. But I think 2021 could definitely be a great last lap for TK because he's gonna be in competitive equipment, Chip Ganassi racing, and I definitely think with the lineup of Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, Marcus Ericsson, and then sharing that 48 car with Jimmie Johnson, I think Tony Kanaan's gonna have a chance to go out on a very competitive note. And as I mentioned, Jimmie Johnson has said no ovals for him, and Tony Kanaan's pretty good at ovals and very popular with the fans. Definitely a big time fan favorite, and I'm sure he's definitely gonna be looking for that big fan send-off, and with several vaccines coming soon, maybe Kanaan will get to race in front of his loyal fans one final time. And Joe, here's something that I'm wondering. Do you think Jimmie Johnson, Tony Kanaan merchandise will be one of the biggest sellers?
I see that being a very big seller. I mean, I can't imagine the potential. If I was Chip Ganassi, now marketing team, I'd be so excited. Have one t-shirt, Tony Kanaan, his name, his face on the other side, Jimmie Johnson, that 48 car in the middle. Oh man, that is merchandise. I mean, look at them. Tony Kanaan, champion, Indianapolis 500 winner. Jimmie Johnson, NASCAR. He's a legendary. 7 Cup championship. Brickyard 400 win. Daytona 500 win. These two have so much wins. I mean, status behind them to the point where the merchandise, this is going to be huge. The die-cast vehicles of the 48, especially Kanaan's going to have different sponsorship compared to Johnson with the Carvana sponsorship. Those are going to be selling. Those are going to be high demand. And this is just going to be a very popular combination, a big win for the fans. And I mean, especially if we could see both of them on the track, if it was at road course, if Tony Kanaan is still there interacting with the fans, at the ovals. You have Jimmie Johnson there interacting with the fans and sponsors. That is going to be a very popular spot for all the fans to go and meet the drivers.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a big seller. However, I feel like there's one driver who might rival them in merchandise. I think it's going to be three-time Australia Supercars champion Scott McLaughlin. And we know McLaughlin coming in. There's a lot of fanfare surrounding his arrival after everything he's done down under, now he's leaving one of the top seats in Australia Supercars to come over to IndyCar and pursue a career in open wheel racing. And yeah, I do think Jimmie Johnson, Tony Kanaan will be up there in merchandise. But I think Scott McLaughlin is definitely going to give them a run for their money. And now, of course, I mentioned Kanaan's last win was 2014 in Fontana, and he was driving for Chip Ganassi then. However, TK hasn't been able to win since then. And he said that there's no excuse not to win next year, considering the level of highly competitive equipment that he'll be driving. Do you feel that Kanaan has any pressure to perform next season, or is he just going out there to win and have fun?
I do see him having the pressure, not as in like I need to keep this ride, I need to keep my career going, but more I want to do good for NTT, for the sponsors, for Chip Ganassi for giving me this opportunity. With that said, when he's going out of the track, he's putting pressure on himself to go out there, try to go for wins. He's not there point racing. He's not going to be trying to, oh, I need to run in the top 10, but run a smart, safe race to just score points. No, he's just going to go out there, try to win. Especially with the way the team's going to be, him and Jimmie, that car, I mean, Jimmie's going to be a rookie. He's going to have a learning curve in the road courses. Tony Kanaan, expert in the oval. I think a lot of people are going to be expecting Tony Kanaan to contend for wins in that 48. Might take Jimmie Johnson a little bit of some time to get comfortable enough with the car and be towards the front. But with Tony Kanaan, a lot of folks are going to be anticipating him up front. But as I mentioned, I think Tony Kanaan, he's just going to put the pressure on himself to go out there, win, try to be up front, but at the same time, he's going to have fun, especially if the fans are back.
And for starters, it's going to be really crazy next season calling Jimmie Johnson a rookie, a seven-time NASCAR Cup Series champion with the R right next to his name on the time and scoring sheets. But going back to Tony Kanaan, I think it's going to be a little bit of both. Yeah, there's going to be pressure on him to perform, and yes, he should go out there and have fun. And I think the pressure comes from the type of equipment that he's going to be driving. You know, when he's in the AJ Ford equipment, he did the best he could in in that car. But you know they just weren't on par with the top contenders. And Chip Ganassi Racing is a top tier IndyCar team, and he's definitely gonna get equipment capable of going out there and winning. So I think that's where the pressure comes from. And on the flip side, TK, it's your final lap, last lap, whatever. Just go out there and have fun because these are the final IndyCar races of your career. I don't know what's gonna happen after that. I know he's gonna be racing in Tony Stewart's SRX with with a lot of other past champions of various disciplines all across the racing world. Maybe we'll see TK in sports cars, but since it looks like his IndyCar career is going to be coming to an end, been around for so many years, I think it's definitely in his best interest to just enjoy these final four races.
Yeah, enjoy the Final Four racing and especially the Indianapolis 500. If we can have all the fans there, you know he's going to be just so thrilled to have that opportunity. I think it'll be a big moment for the fans, Tony Kanaan, and the sport of IndyCar. Now, a big moment for Formula E. It was announced today that Formula E is going to have their first nighttime race in 2021. Next season, a historic night race in Saudi Arabia. It will be a double header and it will be under the lights. This is the first time in Formula E history that they will have a night race. Of course, Formula E mostly made up of street courses. How hyped up are you to hear that Formula E is going to have a night race in 2021?
It was very exciting. I remember when they had the very first night race in the history of Formula One, and people were so excited. This is definitely a change of pace for Formula E, as you know, everything's been in the daytimes so far. But now we get a night race. I'm sure that's definitely gonna add to the element of the event.
It will add to the element of the event. It always seems something special, especially about that first night race. You mentioned about Formula One. I still remember the first night race they had there. With Formula E, this just makes it where everyone's going to be really hyped up, excited about, especially if the fans could go there, their trackside. Now they could go there, enjoy a day at the races, and ends under the lights. I think that'll just be a huge win for both sides. Now, of course, for the timing, it'll be a 7 a.m. Eastern time, 4 a.m. Pacific. So for the U.S. viewers, a little bit of a early morning compared to traditionally will be later on. Now, the light setup they'll be using 50% less energy compared to a conventional track lighting system. Of course, Formula E, sustainability, energy saving is one of their big primary goals. And of course, for Formula E, they've been in Saudi Arabia already. Formula One, they're going to be going to Saudi Arabia next year at Jeddah, where they'll also race that event under the lights. Can we see more night circuits, especially for Formula E, considering they mostly do street courses?
Yeah, since they mostly do street courses, it's a lot easier to do night races, and I do think we may see a few more night events in Formula E. But I don't think they're going to get too crazy with it and just add a bunch of night races right out of the blue. And I definitely think that this night race is a lot of fans and people inside the paddock are going to be really excited to see these Formula E cars under the lights for the very first time.
Under lights for the first time is going to be very exciting. And I do agree, especially now that we know with LED lighting, the cost of lighting up a track isn't as high as it used to be. Of course, there'll be a lot of temporary lighting, but definitely I see it being more feasible now to host events. The question, of course, would be which tracks. I could see a track, especially Germany, Berlin, that airport, that'll be an easy venue to convert to nighttime. Some of the street courses where there's a little bit more open space as well, good potential there as well. Now, with that said, though, one component that people have been talking about, especially with Saudi Arabia, is the issue of human rights. Human rights activists citing the poor record, especially towards women in Saudi Arabia. 2018 was a big year in which many were criticizing businesses engaging with Saudi Arabia, especially after the assassination of a journalist, which was critical of the Saudi Arabian government. We saw this occur when World Wrestling Entertainment, an American based pro wrestling group, went there. They were receiving criticism. And many are questioning Formula One Race as One campaign and holding a race in Saudi Arabia. Is it fair to question Formula E going to Saudi Arabia and their positively charged initiative?
Yeah, I definitely think it's definitely fair to question their positively charged initiative because basically they're gonna be going to a nation, Saudi Arabia, that goes against everything that they're standing for. Formula E and Formula One. And I do think as we get closer to the race, we might start seeing this story get louder and louder and louder. Although I don't think that it's going to get bad enough where they're going to have to cancel both Formula E and Formula One races in Saudi Arabia next year. But I definitely think this is a story that we're going to have to keep following because there's a lot of unhappy people about them choosing to race in this nation, considering their initiatives.
Considering the initiative, I do think it's fair to question. You have this initiative positively charged, and you have the government of Saudi Arabia that has a history of these human rights violations. Of course, earlier on in the year, we've been bringing up about Turkey and their human rights issues. And then Lewis Hamilton mentioned that he wants to make it where Formula One does essentially bring up human rights and make each country that Formula One visit a little bit better. But that said, I think the same has to be true with Formula E and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I know probably there's a good chance, well, high probability that the Saudi Arabian government is helping with the expenses of hosting a Formula E race there. They've done the same thing with having other sporting events in the country. But a lot of times people will be critical, and I think you are right. We're going to see that voices get louder and louder as we get closer to the event for Formula E and especially Formula One next year in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, voices gonna get louder and louder. And speaking of questioning things, some people are questioning a move made recently by John Hunter Nemechek. And recently, many were surprised when John Hunter Nemechek informed Front Row Motorsports that he wouldn't return to the organization next year. Nemechek seemed to really help out a growing organization, improving each year, and then he dropped a bombshell that he would leave the NASCAR Cup Series and return to his roots in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. And Nemechek ended up signing a deal with Kyle Busch Motorsports to drive the number 4 Toyota Tundra full-time, replacing Rafael Lessard. And early this morning, GMS Racing announced that they signed Rafael Lessard. He'll compete in at least 12 races with the hopes of going full-time if they find the necessary funding for a full season. And going back to John Hunter Nemechek, instead of running Big Packing Cup, Nemechek will have top tier equipment capable of competing for a Truck Series championship next year. Do you really see this as a move? Do you really see this move as Nemechek betting on himself, being a part of a long term plan?
Yes, especially we know with his career, he has been successful in the trucks. Gone to the Xfinity Series, drove for Chip Ganassi's 42 car, even in the Xfinity Series. And of course, that's really good equipment. But then when you get to the Cup level, well, Ganassi Racing, they were filled. We know it was a little bit different this year with some of the things that occurred. Matt Kinsley coming in, but they didn't have really a spot for him. Rick Hendrick Racing, they already have their drivers. A lot of top drivers, top teams already took in. So essentially, he went with front row racing. We know for that team, the best chances for them getting a win is at Daytona Talladega, the restrictor place, and he made the most of it. With that said, though, realistically, will another year with that team be productive? They may have improved here and there in all the tracks. Still, the restrictor plate tracks is their best bet. I see it as just being a better choice of going somewhere, being competitive, going for wins, going for a championship, and then just having a little bit of a stronger racing resume to make a bigger deal and get hopefully a better cup right in the future.
Yeah, I think this is a great move for John Hunter Nemechek actually, and I saw people on social media saying, "Why is he dropping down to the Truck Series? Why is he dropping down?" I don't necessarily see this move as dropping down like demoting yourself to the Truck Series. Actually, I think this might end up being a better situation for John Hunter Nemechek because, as we know, Kyle Busch Motorsports has some great equipment, and if John Hunter Nemechek can go out there and show what he can do in this great equipment, he can maybe put himself in position to get and to return to the NASCAR Cup Series in better equipment. And I think that would be a win-win situation for him. And now Nemechek is a member of the Toyota family. Although they don't really have a lot of cars at the Cup level right now, that may change someday. A few weeks ago, we saw some social media posts of blueprints regarding the future of 2311 Racing, the new Toyota team in the NASCAR Cup Series, co-owned by basketball legend Michael Jordan and Cup driver Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace is going to be driving the number 23 Toyota Camry in year one. And the blueprint showed potential plans to eventually expand to a four-car operation. Do you think Nemechek could be in a good spot to return to Cup in the future, especially now being a Toyota driver?
Yes, the being a Toyota driver, I mean, part of that program, you got the potential of right now, Joe Gibbs Racing, if something was to occur, driver injury, something, you're a substitute. Along with that, 2311 could really be expanded and growing. If they were to add a second car by 2022, you're a candidate for that, especially if you have a really good truck season. With the nice part too, with that brand new car, everyone's on the level field. So even though you're not a rookie because you had one rookie season already, being that the car is equal, you don't have that disadvantage of being a rookie. So I think it's going to be huge for John Hunter. And then, of course, if Toyota keeps growing, if 2311 was to get to a four-car team, that I feel really good he'll land somewhere there. The big thing I think, especially with Toyota, we know in the past, Joe Gibbs Racing is a lot of pressure being in there. You have to perform because there's another driver in the lineup. So being part of that driver lineup, trying to get in a cup, a lot more competition there, but he's betting on himself to go into Truck Series, get wins, get championship, and make a case for himself to come back to the Cup Series.
I'm really glad you brought up pressure, Joe, because that's exactly where I was headed next with my thoughts. And we all know there's a lot of pressure that comes when you drive for the man of the hour, Kyle Busch. He expects you to go out there and not only win races, but to win championships as well. And anything less is honestly considered a disappointment at KBM. And we've seen some drivers failed to deliver that in recent years. Although he won at Talladega, Rafael Lassard is out at KBM, and John Hunter Nemechek is in as his replacement. And team owner Kyle Busch mentioned most races not having any practice or qualifying due to the pandemic as a reason for signing Nemechek, adding his experience will play a major factor next season. Is this the right move to get a veteran driver instead of an inexperienced rookie who may struggle with very limited practice next season?
Yeah, it done the big things with Nemechek, his experience, his knowledge. He could bring back useful information. A rookie, a rookie's out there learning on the track as well, trying to make the notes to better himself and the team. To have that veteran driver to say, okay, this is what I need from the truck, compared to a rookie, this is what I need, but then you might have a crew chief or engineer saying, well, here's what we know from the track. Are you getting these parts? This just makes it where, okay, it's going to be a lot more. Nemechek's going to help us get better and better. He has the experience, the knowledge from the past to do this. And I think it is a big move because even though a lot of times the trucks is a good area for rookies to come in, just like in the cup level, every once in a while, having that experience come in, make the team better, it could be a big win overall. If Nemechek could go to cup again in the future, and then a rookie was to come in, and Kyle Busch Motorsports had a really solid team ready to go. And from Nemechek's experience, they could really put that rookie in the future in a really great spot.
And honestly, I think having a veteran driver is going to benefit this organization significantly because, as we all know, Kyle Busch Motorsports has taken a dive in performance lately. They haven't been the dominant force that they've been winning races and been in contention for to win the championship. It seems like they've really gone maybe about one or two steps down, and I think it's because of inexperience. And have really young drivers, two rookie drivers, and sometimes inexperience does hurt. Even at the Truck Series level. So to get a driver like John Hunter Nemechek, who's now raced a full season in the NASCAR Cup Series, raced in the Xfinity Series, and then drove for Nimco Motorsports in the Truck Series in lesser equipment. Yeah, and I do think that although John Hunter Nemechek is still a young driver himself, he already has a whole bunch of experience, and we can now call him a veteran driver because of everything that he's accomplished so far in his racing career. And I think that his presence will only make Kyle Busch Motorsports stronger moving forward as they try to get back to being one of the teams to beat in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series.
Yeah, and you mentioned he is a very young driver, but many consider him a veteran just because of his experience already on the track. Such a young age, a big veteran. Another young veteran that everyone's talking about, of course, the NASCAR Cup Series champion, Chase Elliott, the newly crowned champion. He's going to stay busy during this offseason. He'll be competing in the Snowball Derby at Five Flag Speedway and the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona. Well, last night he announced that he'll be competing in his third off-season event. This time it'll be the Chili Bowl in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the famous dirt racing event in January with midget cars. Now, some other NASCAR names have won and made some noise in recent years at the Chili Bowl. This includes three-time Chili Bowl winner Christopher Bell, defending winner, stars on the dirt track all over the country, and of course now coming to Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson. And speaking of Larson, he's a driver who has always balanced dirt track racing with his NASCAR schedule. Some were worried that he wouldn't be allowed to do any dirt tracks with Hendrick Motorsports starting in 2021. However, it looks like he'll be able to continue racing on dirt as long as it doesn't conflict with his NASCAR commitment. And now we're seeing Chase Elliott race outside of NASCAR with this Chili Bowl. I think that got a lot of fans excited. Do you think this is a Kyle Larson effect getting to Mr. H to be more open-minded about the drivers racing elsewhere?
I think it certainly could be the Kyle Larson effect. And I remember even before the Monza Madness stuff happened with Kyle Larson, a lot of people thought he was going to be at Hendrick Motorsports. But however, there were always those concerns that Mr. H wouldn't allow him to race on dirt like Chip Ganassi had allowed him to, and that's why some people thought that Stewart Haas Racing would be a good destination for him, considering Tony Stewart, eats, sleeps, breathes dirt racing, and he would definitely not have an issue with Kyle Larson keeping up his dirt schedule. So when Kyle Larson, went to Hendrick Motorsports, people were like, "Oh, well, we're gonna have to see what's happening with his dirt schedule." But But I think Rick Hendrick was quoted saying that he's going to allow Kyle to race on dirt as long as it doesn't affect his NASCAR commitments. And I think that's going to be great for the sport of motor racing in general. As we've seen, Kyle Larson's been tearing it up on dirt tracks all across the country. Been doing some great things, winning a lot of races, and now with Larson in the organization and Rick Hendrick allowing him to race outside of NASCAR, I think that gives the other drivers some leverage as well. Be like, hey, if we're gonna allow Kyle Larson to race on dirt, then can you let me go run the Rolex 24? Can you let me go run the Chili Bowl and the Snowball Derby as well? Yeah, so I definitely think that this may be some of the Kyle Larson effect, and I also think some of it might be Chase Elliott winning that Cup championship because I know in the past we've had team owners make deal with their driver, but like if you do this, this, and this, I'm gonna let you go racing this series or whatever. And I think we saw the same thing with Scott McLaughlin and Roger Penske. Scott McLaughlin won the Bachelor's 1000, clicked off 3 Supercars championships in a row, and he gets to pursue his dream of becoming an IndyCar driver.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point on how we're seeing more crossover. And one of the big things, I think this is a big win for all of sports. Rather than having it where Chase Elliott exclusively with NASCAR, if you want to see Chase Elliott race a car race, it has to be at a NASCAR event. Now, if you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, yeah, it's near Texas. There's Texas Motor Speedway. That's still a lot of driving to get there. Well, here comes Chase Elliott to Tulsa, that Chili Bowl. You can watch him race there. Snowball Derby. I mean, these are really big events for the fans to watch Chase Elliott go out there, win races. The opportunity to see Kyle Larson. I mean, if you're talking about Kyle Larson at the dirt track racing that night, you're more likely to follow Kyle Larson when he goes to the Cup Series next race. Same with Chase Elliott, and I think it's overall a big win. It might be a change in the way we see drivers. I know it seems like, especially Jimmie Johnson, early on in his career, he talked about being able to travel with his helmet to different races, different types of events. But throughout his Winston Cup, Sprint Cup, and then, of course, Monster Energy Cup Series career, has been very much committed to stock car race. And now that he's no longer going to be full time, we're seeing him doing more events. And I think we're going to start seeing a change where we might see more and more drivers do other disciplines more frequently.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a huge win for motorsports, having drivers from multiple disciplines racing other series. And I think and that's something, with the grueling schedule of NASCAR, it's been really hard for drivers to go race in other series. And hopefully within the next couple of years, we'll see more NASCAR drivers venturing out to run on the asphalt short tracks and the dirt tracks. And also particularly the Rolex 24 at the beginning of the season when NASCAR added more road courses. I'm wondering if we're going to see more drivers try to find rides for the Rolex 24 because NASCAR presence at Daytona, the 24-hour race, has been lacking. So, so with the addition of these road courses, maybe we'll see more of them compete, and that's just going to be great in general. Watching the stars of NASCAR go up against the best of the best in IndyCar, even some drivers with Formula One experience, and also your usual suspects in the world of sports car racing, both IMSA and the World Endurance Championship. And next, we're going to discuss some Monza madness, but probably not the Monza madness that you are expecting. Scott Mitchell from the race reports that the head of Italian Motorsport, Stici Damiani, is looking into renovating the old Monza Oval, potentially making it suitable for racing again one day. And Italian media reports that Damiani is seeking funding from the Italian government to help renovate Monza just in time for the 100-year anniversary in 2022. And Monza already has plans to add new grandstand, make the circuit faster by removing one of the chicanes, and reprofiling the second Lesmo. And after being a historical site for years now, no racing on the Monza Oval, there's potential for the Monza Oval with 30 degrees of banking to make a shock return in the future. Joe, are you surprised by this development? And if this happens, what series could you envision racing at the Monza Oval?
I am very surprised by this news development. I would just assume, like, oh, it was going to be a fun fantasy, the Monza Oval, but I just don't see that happening again. Now to hear, oh, hey, there's an effort to get this renovated and ready for race cars. Wow, that is really big, pleasant surprise and news. I think it's really going to be interesting to see are they going to make it where it's going to be essentially race car ready for legitimate car racing, or more for like the fun little fast rides where they take people, probably like some vintage sports cars around the high banking. If there is going to be competitive racing on the high speed oval, oh man, I can't imagine Formula One. I know Formula One way back in the '60s did a combination of the road course oval. I don't see them willing to do that unless things totally change and they really feel it's a safe idea. But definitely, I would see something where, if especially a stock car based, tour car based series, that could be a fun option. And especially, we don't see a lot of oval racing. To have this kind of oval there, it will definitely be a high speed challenge. I would say it will be almost like a super speedway challenge, but in Europe. And who knows, maybe if some, I think if you got an oval that good of shape at Monza, why not NASCAR? Hey, let's do an exhibition race in Monza someday.
Joe, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you here. This is one of these stories where I won't believe it until I actually see it with my own two eyes. Because, like you mentioned, this seems like something straight out of a fantasy. I mean, I got my PS4 right beside me right now. I could just plug in Project Cars and just race the Monza Oval. Yeah, the old Monza Oval. So it seems like something straight out of a video game or straight out of Project Cars too. Yeah, but if this does happen, I think it will be wonderful, and I'm just as shocked as you are by this development, and I do think if it were to happen, a NASCAR exhibition race would be perfect because 30 degrees of banking, Monza Oval is basically a super speedway, and it would more than likely be a restrictor plate track like Daytona and Talladega. But if they are going to renovate it, there needs to be some serious changes. I don't know how they do that. Include some safer barriers, some of the general things. But overall, we're gonna keep following this story and see if it actually happens because once again, I'm not gonna believe this until I actually see it with my own two eyes. And now Joe's gonna kick off our section of quick takes.
Recently, news came out that Morgan Shepherd has Parkinson's disease. A longtime NASCAR Cup Series driver, Morgan Shepherd, of course, a lot of folks will remember he raced in the late '90s, especially with the Wood brothers. Recently, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The 79-year-old is in the early stages of the disease. Now, according to the Mayo Clinic, Parkinson's disease is a progressive nervous system disorder that affects movement. In the early stages of Parkinson's disease, you may show little or express little symptoms. However, you may notice like your arms may not swing when you walk, your speech may become soft or slurred. Parkinson's disease symptoms worsen as your condition progresses over time. Shepard is still planning to have his team on the track in 2021 as a car owner. So it's just one of many challenges to face every day when he was told about the Parkinson's disease and asked about it. 2020 was the first year that Morgan had not competed in any race in the last 52 years in NASCAR. Of course, he has 4 Cup Series wins to his resume. We are sending our best wishes to Morgan and his family.
Tom Blomqvist is taking the second seat at Neo 333 alongside Oliver Turvey, and many anticipated that Daniel Abt would take the seat, and Blomqvist replaced James Calado at the end of the 2020 season with the Jaguar Formula E team, and Abt has never missed a race in Formula E history, dating back to the inaugural season in 2014, and there's no words on Daniel Abt's plans for 2021, so his streak could definitely be in jeopardy here.
Wayne Taylor Racing announced its 2020 lineup after announcing they were switching from Cadillac to Acura. That began one of the teams to replace Team Penske. We finally saw Wayne Taylor Racing announce the 2020 Acura DPI lineup. Rick Taylor returns to his father's team as one of the full-time season drivers. He competed for the championship with teammate Felipe Albuquerque. IndyCar star Alexander Rossi will drive the longer distance endurance races, and Helio Castroneves completes the lineup for the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona. That is a strong lineup for Wayne Taylor Racing. 3 drivers from Acura Team Penske and the most recent World Endurance Championship LMP2 champion.
John DeGeese from Sports Car 365 reports that LMP2 will continue its recent streak of growth, with championship winners in the IMSA Prototype Challenge moving up to the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in 2021. K2R Motorsports will field an Orca 07 Gibson in LMP2 for the full season with driver Stephen Thomas, and his co-driver will be announced at a later date.
AIM and Vassar Sullivan announced their parting ways. Some surprising news from the GTD class dropped yesterday afternoon. AIM Autosport and Vassar Sullivan Racing have parted ways effective immediately. They have worked together for the last 2 years with the Lexus GTD program. In a statement, Jim Vassar and James Sully Sullivan said they are something that there are something excited. There are some exciting announcements coming, so they encourage everyone to stay tuned. AIM Autosport said they're looking forward to new opportunities in 2021. They're looking at racing at the IMSA Michelin Pilots Challenge GS class, potentially with the Toyota Supra GT4. Despite their departure with Lexus, AIM relationship with TRD remains intact.
W Series champion Jamie Chadwick will drive in the upcoming season of the new series Extreme E. She signed with Valence Racing. We'll have more to report tomorrow on Grit Girls.
Latest update on Ken Squire. His daughter Ashley posted an update on the legendary Hall of Fame NASCAR broadcaster on Facebook. Of course, Ken Squire has been hospitalized after testing positive for COVID-19. Ashley Squire said Ken's doctors are optimistic that he'll beat the virus. He's very weak, but responding well to treatment. We continue to send our best wishes to Ken Squire and his family during this difficult time.
And before we let you go for the night, we're ending our program on a somber note. Tragedy struck the NASCAR community last night. And this story was first reported by Cassie Fambro from WBRC Fox 6 News. Then Hendrick Motorsports put out an official statement. 30-year-old William Rowdy Harrell and his new bride Blakely were killed in a motor vehicle accident last night in Florida. Rowdy Harrell was a tire changer for Cup Series driver Alex Bowman and previously played college football at the University of Alabama. Rowdy and Blakely just got married a few days ago on Saturday, and the newlyweds were on their way to celebrate their honeymoon together when the tragic accident occurred. And on behalf of everyone at Grid Network, we extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Rowdy and Blakely Harrell. And right here, driver Alex Bowman put out an official statement saying Rowdy was everything that made the 88 team, the biggest personality and the best person. He was the happiest person you'd ever meet. And that was only reinforced by his wife Blakely. Rest in peace to an absolute legend. You'll be missed every single day, brother. Joe. Such a horrific tragedy, especially with it being the holiday season, and they literally just got married days ago. They had their whole lives ahead of them, and now they're gone just like that. My heart really aches for all of their loved ones.
My heart aches for them too, family, friends. I just can't imagine the amount of grief and shock they're going through. The only thing I could say is, him and his wife, they love together. It's very unfortunate. They started their marriage together. Unfortunately, they left together as well. And we're thinking of all of them throughout such a hard, tragic. It's just a tragedy, and there's no way you could not try to cover it up. It's just really hard. We're thinking of everybody, Hendrick Motorsports, the family, friends, and everyone involved in such a unfortunate tragedy. Tomorrow we'll have Grid Girls. Grid Girls, we're going to be reporting on the latest news from all the women racing around the world, including the big news about Jamie Chadwick going to Extreme E. One of the big things, we encourage everyone to be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We definitely want to keep hearing from you, the viewers. And we encourage everyone to visit our Patreon. Definitely want to give a big shout out to Colin. He has been a really wonderful Patreon, investing in us. Of course, as an investor, we have different plans where you could get our monthly financial reports. So that way you can see where your money is being invested, how we're using it to expand the Grid Network, Grid Ranking, and World Motorsport League. And definitely we want to thank everyone for watching our program tonight. I know It's very unfortunate to end a somber note, but we here, we love car racing. We enjoy sharing our passion with everyone in the community. And just like everyone, especially the Rick Hendrick Motorsports team that's hurting, we're hurting as well because we know they're our community members. When one of us has some heartache, something like that happen, that affects all of us, and we're all going to stand together with them. Kobe Lambeth at the podium finish. I'm Joe San Diego. Have a wonderful, safe evening.